Hello, everyone. I'm Andrew Schmertz. It is a high-tech bank heist. JP Morgan is said to be the main victim of a hacking scheme revealed Tuesday by the U.S. Attorney in New York. Scott Schober from Berkeley Veritronic System is here to describe about what this was, how it worked, and how much money they got. 4 people arrested. What are they charged with?
Yeah, what they did is they had an elaborate scheme, and they really caught him in this case. It took a long time to catch him, and what they were doing is really collecting this 100 million plus customer info from JP Morgan, also a little bit from Scottrade and E-Trade as well, several million, and they used that for an elaborate spamming campaign, basically. So what they would do is buy a stock very low, they'd spam everyone, these 100+ million people, and it would tell them to buy the stock, particular one, drive the price up, and then they would dump it and sell it. So kind of
classic, old school pump and dump scheme by getting their hands on the customer data. Any idea of how much money they got away with?
They estimate over $100 million that they've made over a period of time, these 4, and there's probably a 5th accomplice also that's going to be soon named. And it's about 15 firms so far. They haven't named them other than what we know, JP Morgan, another a mutual fund firm up in Boston as well, but that's about all we know so far.
How does the physical ability of hacking these accounts work?
Well, it usually starts somehow. There's a weakness or vulnerability on the inside. Somebody plants something, usually malware.
Inside job somewhere.
Yeah, that's typically the way it happens. In this case, if you go back last year, a lot of people thought, hey, this was the Russians or state-sponsored or something like that. Not the case at all. So law enforcement has been working very closely with JP Morgan. They found out a ton of information. A lot more is going to be unfolding.
How long has JP Morgan, do you think, known about this? Were they the ones to discover it, from what we can tell?
No, not exactly. I think it was an outside firm working with them, but they did report it very quickly. With less than a month, they came clean and said, hey, look, we see suspicious activity. The good news is no money specifically was taken, no social security numbers were compromised when they first reported it. That's good, and it still appears that that hasn't happened.
It was merely a way of getting to the people who make investment decisions to buy stocks and to raise stocks. So
exactly.
A very simple sort of scheme.
Yes, exactly. They were also doing some other stuff, too, with Bitcoin, selling it, some casino stuff as well, some even online pharmacies where they're using this information to sell to targeted individuals.
Where does the key for an institution like JP Morgan sit as far as stopping this from happening and then discovering it quickly? What do they have to do to stop it from happening, and is that harder than discovering it?
Yeah, good point there. A lot of these companies, and especially the banking institutions in particular, what they're doing is early threat detection now. So they're monitoring real time. When they see any suspicious activity, they can thwart it immediately, and even more importantly, they can warn their customers so that money is not taken.
This was very much an international scheme?
It was really a domestic scheme here, but the people some were from Israel, one individual was from Russia, somebody was from the U.S., and they were young too. It's interesting, about 34 years old to about 40-something years old. So again, fairly young hackers that were working together.
And then how did they find the hackers? How do you track down these people?
That's the part that took so long. If you think about it, this was about, what, midsummer last year when we started hearing about this. It actually occurred even earlier traces back a number of years before that. And what they're doing is monitoring. But a lot of times in the dark web, the underground world, they'll actually monitor and they'll see a lot of these transactions. They'll go onto forums and follow them.
How good is our law enforcement in looking at this, quote, dark web? And the dark web, to explain it basically, is the web that is not normally accessible through typical search engines.
Exactly.
And accessible only if you know how to get there.
Yeah, exactly. We work up here on the surface web. It's unindexed in the dark web, a lot more information. So you got to know specifically how to get there and who to talk to. FBI does a fabulous job down there, and they actually impersonate, pretend they're hackers, and they become part of the community until they could finally break in and catch them. So they're doing a good job.
What is the message you have for customers who are concerned that their information is stolen in this kind of instance?
Well, I think in this case, they're fairly safe, which is the good news. The other thing is I think Jamie Dimon spent a lot of money. He increased another $250 million in spending toward cybersecurity to keep things safe and win back the customers. In fact, it's the best performing stock. I think they're up 119% in comparison to any other financial stock. That's pretty amazing.
Okay, Scott Schober, thank you.
Great. Thanks
a
for
lot
having
more
me.
to come on this story, I think.
Absolutely.